I gotta wait? How long I gotta wait for a press record?
Go.
Welcome to the shed, where Miss Dream always has a story.
It's Dream, and we got a season 2. Your Black Bostonian here, a product of a single mother who I work to make proud every single day. I'm a 3-degree holder, your veteran educator, your tech entrepreneur, and founder of the Chair platform. My platform is dedicated to supporting Black and Brown people on their hair journey by creating hair boards, connecting to hairstylists, and sharing haircare tips for a more joyous experience. My podcast is about sharing hair stories, educator stories, entrepreneurship stories, and stories surrounding identity with goals to leave you laughing, learning, and advocating. So come in and listen to the stories in the chair.
Where we share stories in the chair.
Today on the podcast is a roundtable discussion with 7 Black women with over 60 years of combined work in the military with various roles to talk about their careers, sisterhood, and hair. Before we start, I want to say thank you to Michele for helping me get all these beautiful voices together for a moment online. If it wasn't for her, this would not have happened. Please go listen to Michele's original episodes from season 1. Michele shared her story in 4 episodes titled I Ain't Going to the Navy, episode 42, Shot Like Hurt, Shot Like Dead, episode 43, Regulations in Our Pockets, episode 44, and I Am a Warrior, episode 45. So enjoy this Navy Roundtable.
Stories in the chair.
How we're going to start this off, we're going to do introductions. They're going to say their name, their titles, how long they were in the service, and their favorite ice cream flavor. So, Michele, can you start, please?
I sure can, beautiful. Thank you so very much for inviting me on your platform once again. I'm truly honored because you're one of my favorite people. I'm so proud of you. My name is Michele Robinson Ewing. I am a retired lieutenant commander from the U.S. Navy. I served 27 years, and my favorite ice cream is, unfortunately, Trader Joe's when life gives you lemons. And I say fortunately because I only had it that 1 year, and they haven't brought it back out yet. They just messing around with me. They playing in my face. But hey, I'm going to wait for it to come back.
Coy.
My name is Coy Landrum. I was a yeoman in the Navy for 18 years. And my favorite ice cream is butter pecan and heavy on the pecan.
Sean.
Good afternoon and evening, ladies. Thank you so much for having me, Dream. I am the former retired Commander Sean Hand, United States Navy, proudly retired and a veteran at this time. I'm also the CEO and owner and founder of Brookie Girl Bath and Body Care. My favorite ice cream flavor is chocolate.
Melody.
Well, hello, happy people. I'm glad that we are all convening today. I am Melody Stair, and I'm a retired lieutenant commander, having served 28 long years. And my favorite ice cream is pistachio almond. And yes, I do have a thick Southern accent. So if I say something that you don't understand, tell me to say it slower or enunciate. I will not be offended.
Tracy.
Hello, ladies. It's so good to see all of you this evening. We are looking so well to have spent so much time in the military. My name is Tracy Brown. I spent 20 years as a naval officer, and I retired as a commander. And happy to be here. I spent a lot of time with Miss Michele.
And what is your favorite ice cream flavor?
My favorite, I kind of wrestled with that, but I would have to say salted caramel.
Diane.
Hi, my name is Diane Bachman, and I am a retired naval officer, but I will caveat that with I came into the military enlisted for 4 years, went off to college, and then got my commission, and off I went. So I think I'll be able to give perspective from both sides of the fence. I served 24 years, and my favorite ice cream, so many flavors. But I think I'm going to go with Jenny's, and if you haven't had it, you got to try it. Blueberry and lemon. Yes, Michelle, thank you. Blueberry and lemon all day.
Kat.
Good evening, ladies. This is what I miss. This laughs and the joy when we just get together. We automatically have that. My name is Kachiska Laborde Klee. I'm like Diane. I came in enlisted. I did 7 years though. But and then I retired as a lieutenant commander after 24 years. Most of my experience is in operations and engineering and some policy making. That's where I met Michelle and Commander Hans, former Commander Hans, right? So my favorite ice cream, Haagen-Dazs rum raisin. I'm sorry, I'm the outlier. I'm gonna need a little bit of the twist.
Well, thank you for all the introduction. The foundation of my podcast is hair stories. I started building a platform to support Black and brown people on their hair journey, where you can create hair boards, connect to hairstylists, and share hair care tips, and all in one space. And I started this podcast because I was coming up against a lot of people who had all these hair stories, and I couldn't express them fast enough, quick enough, and with all of the nuance and details that everybody's story had. So I started building this podcast to be able to share how hair, for many of us, is connected throughout our identity, affects how we see the world, has made us decide on jobs, work, life choices. And so I wanted to ask about your hair journeys. Did you have a hair journey in the Navy?
Oh, I want to hit this one. Oh my. My hair journey started a little different because the first time coming from Brooklyn, New York, I was in somebody's front porch salon, right? Michelle knows what I'm talking about. Somebody converted the front porch to a salon and someone put a Dudley Super on my head. And I was that scene from, Thin Line Love. Hey, came up, the hair was left behind. That was the first time I went to a barbershop and cut everything was gone. So I went through that very crazy, oh my God, I lost my hair. Who am I? I mean, even my family changed my nickname from Cat to Little Joe because my dad's name was Joe. It was hard, I was flat chested too. Didn't nobody care. I just became this like pseudo boy because I had lost all my hair. But I had went through that so young that I kind of lost the connection with my hair, right? I just didn't care. So by the time I got to boot camp, and boot camp said, oh, we don't allow hair grease. You can't have special soap. There was not a black section in the store, right? And everybody's hair that was laid out and tight during the MEPS check-in. They did 1 week in boot camp. We couldn't have hair grease. It was like a whole bunch of, I don't even know what the right word. I had a word, but it sounds so racist in my own head.
It was just horror. It was just horror.
It was just bad. And so it got to the point, and like I said, when I joined, you could go to the barbershop. They give you these little books, these little chit books. And I just went into the barbershop and gave them 5 chits. It was like, cut it all off. I'm done. I'm tired of putting it in. Because even as we were going through boot camp and we had these RDCs yelling at us about how we were standing, they were like, you don't look professional. Your hair is all over the place. Now, mind you, we couldn't even get a board bristle bus. Like, we couldn't get a brush to lay it down, and water does not last as long as people think it does, trying to slick these edges down. By the time I walked out of the building, my hair poofed and did its own thing, and we had white RDCs that would look at Seaman Laborde. Now, before I got married, Seaman Laborde, what the hell is going on with your head? You need to tame that. Now, I don't know that there's a number for the type of hair that I have outside of these locks, but I know these RDCs was not feeling it, and I cut it all off. For me, for the longest time, that was the only way I could maintain a level of professionalism and not open myself to criticism about my hair. So I had this level of disconnection while other people were like, oh, I need to go get a perm. I'm like, man, I need to go to the barbershop. I got 10, 15 minutes and then I got to go back to work. I don't have time for this. And I think Michelle, when she met me, she said something about my hair. And she was right, because I was hustling. I was tricking these people that didn't know better. And she saw me come in with the wig. And she saw me take it off on the way to the car. Because I was like, I wasn't doing this. Right? So I think everybody's hair journey, we don't think about the emotional connection, but we also don't think about the availability of stuff, right? I've been on ships and everybody's going bald and no one thinks, well, it's because of the water. It's not because we don't wash our hair. It's because the water, the chlorification, and all this other stuff. You're bald not because you don't have access. The stuff that we were used to at home, the cleaner water, the 5 bottles of shampoo, depending on the day of the week you wanted to use, the level of conditioners, we didn't have space for that. Everything was a fire hazard. Things caught on fire. You didn't want to be the one running around with burning hair. All of us have been in places where we've all been taught how to put out a fire. You did not want that on your head. Don't nobody want no blue magic on your scalp when you're fighting fires. I don't care what nobody says. Right? That's real. That's real. Everybody's laughing, but you know, if your hair is finally just now greased, you was not trying to put on that OCDA, that air tank on, talking about I'm heading towards the fire. So those are the things that we shifted. Now, when we got to shore duty, now Michelle saw it. We was slick, died. We took advantage of it. But on the ship, oh, we was all rough. We was all rough on the ship. That was my moment, y'all. I'm sorry, I felt that one.
Yes, ma'am, you did. I would say, especially on the ship, you're right. Shore duty, you had, enough time to take care of your hair. But I would say on the ship, my one story would be you had to make a decision. So the decision wasn't typically whether you're going to wear your hair. It was more or less what protective style you were going to use on your hair while you were on the ship. And I remember one time we were going to Africa, and we were like the first ship that was going over to Africa. We were doing Africa Partnership Station. And I remember being at home going like, well, what protective style am I going to use on my hair, so that it can survive at least 3 months, at least 3 months. And then after that, I'd have to figure it out. But I would say by the grace of God. So it lasted 3 months. And then I met an ambassador, over there to Africa. And she was like, oh, I know some ladies that can do your hair, that can rebraid your hair. And I was like, she just has no idea. I mean, I was a little nervous. They had put like some berry juice and all kinds of stuff in my hair, but that was the most prolific amount of growth in my hair when they did that. Not only that, they put the braids in, and I was good to go until we came home. And those braids, while they cost me $200 plus here in America, was like $15 in Africa. And I was just like, oh, but there is no way, for the most part, because you don't have time to like do your hair the way you would do on shore duty. You just don't have that kind of time, and fires happen. Anything happens in the middle of the night. And I was at one of my tours was DCA, so you can just imagine. So it was like not a lot of time to be primping, and preparing myself in the mirror. It was good enough. It was like slicked back in a bun and pulled up, which is not good on your hair either. But I will say the one thing about our hair, so many protective styles that you can do with your hair. I mean, it is, whew. But on the flip side, I will say the Navy in and of itself, the changes with the regulations, like I said, I was in 24 years, and I feel like every year those regulations change with, how much hair, how much bulk you can have. And it was just like, and then, that's a whole nother story, but like, how come they can put that color in their hair, but I can't put it here? I thought it matched my skin tone. That it just seemed like a slippery slope and left to interpretation. And to me, therein lied the problem, because what I think is appropriate, somebody else may be like, I don't like it. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure probably everybody has experienced that to some level You know, where you do need the advocate to be like, no, this is acceptable or not.
I'm going to jump in. I had my first duty station as an officer. It was just me. I was with a squadron, 3 other females, but I was the only African American. And as far as that, it was just me, lowest ranking officer in the wardroom. I never forget my skipper. They were frustrated with me because I wanted to get my dive pin. That set everybody off because how dare me want to get my dive pin with squadron, whatever.
Can you explain what that means? What does that mean?
It's just another certification, basically.
Okay.
It's they dive, and so I wanted to do it. I was with a squadron. A lot of people had dive certifications, diving, and that's what I wanted, that certification as well. And they were just not happy that I was going for that. I should probably sit down and just do my job. Basically, was what the answer was. And I actually had my skipper, I never forget, bring me in the office and tell me the complaint was my hair was too thick. This was me by myself. I didn't have a war room. This was before we had the hotline where you could call for help. He took a ruler out, stuck it in the top of my head to measure the thickness. During that same conversation, I was told my fingernail polish was too dark, and I should wear white pantyhose because the women there wear white pantyhose. Now, I know protocol, I know regulation, so my concern there with pantyhose, it says complementary skin tone. That's why they're wearing white. Now, I don't know why they're looking like nurses, but that's not me. So we got that cleared up. The nail polish was complementary to my skin tone, which is why I don't wear pink. You know, that's not complimentary at that time unless you want me looking good and crazy. But the hair, that challenged me from that day. That was my first introduction as an officer. That was one of the hardest days I had at my first duty station. I went out in my car, I never forget, at lunch, and I just cried. I had nobody to call. I was away from my family, everybody. But my mother told me a long time ago they would never see you cry. They're not going to see you cry. Okay, you go do whatever you got to do somewhere else, but it's not going to happen there. And I put it together, you know, and I went, put that chin back up, and I got back in there. And that for me was, let me go find a regulation. After I cried and went through all of that, there's nobody to help me. Let me go find regulation. But that really, from a self-esteem standpoint, I could have said, oh, my hair. No, there's nothing wrong with my hair. I don't know. No. And that really, because it was in me. But if it's not in you, that could have broken me. You know, just with my blackness, just with me being an African-American woman, you know, it really could have changed my mentality if I allowed that. And that helped me years later when, like Michelle said, I had to fight for someone else who was told, your hair is too many colors. Yeah, and I'm going, no, it's not. That's 1B30. She got that from the hair store. It says 2 tones. She got 2 tones. That's 1B30. We can get the package. Now, how many blondes do you have in your head? And because I had the rank, I could ask that question out loud. Tell me how many shades of blonde you have in your head, since we're talking about multicolors. Because that's not 2 tone. We got ash blonde, we got blue blonde, we got all type blondes. Okay, but those were daily conversations that people who all look like me were dealing with just color in our hair. You know, even if you just had naturally brown hair, which someone do, sandy brown, it just is. If someone doesn't think that and you're surrounded by people who believe your hair is supposed to be jet black, then now you've done something that you're not supposed to do.
What did you do after days later or weeks later with the conversation about the ruler in your hair?
After I cried and came back to work, I went to look up the regulation, saw how thick my hair was supposed to be, went back and asked to meet with my skipper again because that was a request. He did let me meet with him, and I explained that I looked at the regulation and my hair does meet the thickness that it's supposed to have. He said, all right, and dismissed me, and I went right on back to work. But I knew where I stood with everybody because it wasn't him. It was someone told him this. They all went with this. And instead of him supporting me and saying, let's look up the regulation, let me bring you in and put a rule in your head. So I knew where I stood. And sometimes that's the best thing, to know where you stand. Okay. So yeah, I went back to work, and I'm not the only one. I mean, people have had worse, and you go back to work.
Where we share stories in the chair.
Look, it's my commercial. We will be right back.
It's more than just a bad hair day. It's a journey. Finding the right hairstyle isn't easy, nor is finding the right stylist or the right products. Looking in every corner of the web gets messy, overwhelming, and exhausting. All the ads, the articles, the products, the videos, it shouldn't be this hard, but it is. And now, it isn't. The Chair. A black and brown centered platform where you can design hair boards, connect to hairstylists, and share hair care tips for a new, joyful path on your hair journey. Avoid the clutter, save yourself hours, months, and even years of research and poor trial and error. Everything you need and only what you need is in one place. Hair boards made by people like you, for you. Find the right products, the right people, the right answers for you, stress-free. Join the Chair community and make every day a great hair day. When you share your pain, you allow others to help you. And when you share your success, you help others get theirs. Lean on the Chair. We got you. No stress, no strife. In the chair. The chair. The chair. All right.
I was just going to follow up on that because I've requested Captain Mask because of my hair. I've had those conversations, and I will say this: it wasn't until someone senior to me, another Black woman, she says, it is because they are afraid of your trajectory that they are using an instruction that is so vague and subjective that it will put pause. Because sometimes they hope that that pause in your momentum is enough to derail you, right? So for me personally, I would just go cut my hair off and be like, okay, now what? Right. But that's because, like I said earlier, I had this already disassociation with my hair. You weren't going to use that to stop me from doing what I needed to do. I can't tell you how many times I've been involved in the military, but I have been, and there was a time where I carried around a copy of the instruction about my hair. How big can my braids be? What is complimentary? And when we say the instruction takes it down to what color nail polish is appropriate for, but it was always for white standards, right? The red was for white standards, but then when a Black woman put a red on, it was, oh, this is too faddish. And that's the word they love to use. The hair was faddish, the color was faddish, the thickness was faddish, everything. That was their catch-all. So you had to use their words against them. Define complimentary, define appropriate, look at the safety regulations, those kind of things. But when I told you I had to walk around with the instruction and I had to defend not my work, not my punctuality, not my professionalism. I had to defend my hair and every other Black person's hair around me because I became that spokesperson about, no, that's actually legal. That's appropriate. Let's go there. And it becomes tiresome, but you realize that it's a necessary conversation to have. Right? Not because I want to change the hair regs, because I need you to look past what I look like and actually look at what I do. Look at how I contribute to this team, because I wasn't, they called us Black naval officers, and I was like, I'm a naval officer. I've worked my butt off, and that had nothing to do with me being Black. It had to do with the fact that I was a jerk, and I knew I could help the Navy. I knew I could take us to another level. Whether it did or not, I couldn't tell you, but I had to stop focusing on my race issue to force them to stop focusing on mine as well.
Melody?
I came in with a Jerry curl, right? And being able to find activator was somewhat challenging in the woods of Mississippi. Um, and then to go overseas to Lodges Azores, Portugal, which was a little small, tiny island in the middle of the ocean, was another challenge. And I would say that for many of us, our hair was not a crown of glory for us. it was something cumbersome, something that we had to constantly write home back home for the products to just be able to maintain. Then aside from that, I applaud the rest of you who were brave enough to stand up and own your own naturalness, right? But for me, I assimilated, and even today I still assimilate a lot. In that right now, baby, I have this hot behind wig on my head so that when I go in to the office, I look like Becky. And when I speak, they're not so much as focused on the drawl that I have of the heaviness of my dialect, but they focus on the professional look that I present, and that gives me the credibility that I need. Now, the assimilation part does cause some consternation, or at least it caused consternation for me, right? Because I would like to grow my hair long. I would like to have my hair natural, and I would like to have my hair braided because that's easy maintenance if it's braided. But there is also was and still is today, whether they want to acknowledge it or not, a stigma associated with the young ladies that come into the office with braided hair. And then now that braids are a lot more are accepted more, I'm telling you now, I work for the National Guard. There is a certain perception of young ladies with locks. It is not the same. It is not readily acceptable. It's easier than it was 20 years ago, but it is still problematic in the services. And
Let
I'll
me
leave it
ask
there.
something for Melody. Yeah, do you all remember our pictures, our officer photographs? Remember we took our pictures? Remember
Yes.
now, how many of us had the bob? That bob you have, Melody? How many of us had? Because that's what we were told when we were getting our uniforms together. I was shown. People were pointed out to me in the hall. Different officers didn't look like me. This is what you're supposed to look like, and every one of them had the bob. And yes, Melody, I got the wigs because I had the bob. Okay, I always had in every officer photograph. I don't care what I was doing before for my photographs. I had a 1B bob, no swoop, no color. It was bob because I was told this is what when your photograph shows. This is what looks comfortable. This is what people see as normal. Anything other than that, then you know you're standing out. You're being it's faddish, and you're looking like you're doing your own thing. So I understand that, Melody. I 100% get that. Yeah, no, that's just yeah. You live exactly where we are, right?
Michelle?
Yeah, I agree with everything everybody is saying. Even when I did come to the ship with braids, because I had to meet my ship out there, it was braided into a bob, right? Because that was acceptable. It was fashionable,
Yeah.
but acceptable because the challenge I was running into was I did like to wear my hair, long, but it was gonna be straight because creamy crack was my friend until I found, some keratin, right up until last year when I finally just like, listen, cut it all off. But what was happening with me is when I would wear, because I like to wear my hair on my shoulders, you have to, pin your hair up. What was happening is I was causing breakage right underneath the ponytail because we couldn't just have ponytails hanging, they had to be in a bun, right? And so I would always cause breakage. As soon as I would get my hair growing long, I would have to get it cut because anytime I would go to the hairdresser, they're like, "Oh, it's broken right here." And wearing those ball caps and other covers, my hair is now starting to grow back in here, and right here on the front because all the ball caps and the things that we had to wear, it was rubbing our hair out, but nobody cared. And when we were in boot camp, like they mentioned, you couldn't put nothing in your hair. I came in with a wave nouveau, was just a fancy way of saying Jerry curl, right?
Yeah.
That's all, right? And they were like, no, they got this one. It's the water-based stuff. I still couldn't put it in my hair. So I'm walking around boot camp looking like a frustration pencil. And it's blazing hot. It's out there in Orlando, Florida. So now I'm like, I mean, I got sunburn and all kinds of stuff. So now I'm walking around actually look closer to buckwheat, right? First it was frustration pencil. Now I'm starting to look more like buckwheat. First thing my father said when he saw me come marching up at boot camp was, "Okay." You know, so, and this is where it started. It started in the boot camp. I thought I was going to beat the system by getting my hair done in a wave nouveau, get it nice and cut. No, my hair was running around. Those frustration pencils that you take and do like that, and it's got the little curl on top. That's what my hair was looking like.
So y'all look.
And then you go and you're right. When you're younger, they always riding you about your hair, and you have to say, because the way they have the reg written, people can interpret it any way they want.
Yeah, what they want.
It say it had to be a natural hair color.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't say your natural hair color, but depending on the Caucasian person reading it, they're like, well, blonde is not your natural hair color. And you have to advocate for your sellers, because that's not a color that I wear, right? But if somebody else who it looks complimentary on wants to wear it, they should be able to. I'm like, it says it has to be a natural hair color, not their natural hair color. And you don't know what their natural hair color is, because there are some Black people that are born with blonde hair. I had a cousin who had a blonde streak right in the front of her head. Now, she'd have been in trouble, but that was her natural hair, how it grew out of her head. So, and then I would ask, just like Sean, I'm like, you telling me I can't have my hair a certain color? What about them highlights you got in your hair? And they were like, yeah, but no, there is no but. Your hair is not naturally that way. You went and got it colored that way. So guess who getting highlights in her hair? Okay, and I don't hear nothing. So you have to be able to say, show me in writing, and I'm willing to fight for it, depending on what it is. But that also comes at a cost.
It does.
Right? Everything comes at a cost. And I'm going to tell you, the first African American officer that I saw that always had a clean haircut was Tracy. That was my first introduction into the Navy. But at that time, it wasn't acceptable in my family for us to cut our hair. I suppose, I don't want to speak for her, but maybe it was easier for her to just keep a nice cut. It used to be clean, y'all. I mean, she had them lines and edges before that was even a thing. I mean,
Tracy.
Tight. Every time you saw her, you know what I mean? She represented the community. I'm going to tell you that. And because in my family, we didn't cut our hair, I had to just pin mine up, because I didn't come from that type of family. They like, don't cut your hair. That's what you always said. Don't you cut your hair. Don't you cut your hair. Once my hair started breaking off, what choice do you really have but to cut your hair? And then I cut it to come into boot camp. So our hair journey, I would say for most of us, was one that was pretty tumultuous, because you have to sacrifice. Am I going to be considered professional, or am I going to go against the grain? And sometimes I did a little bit of both. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you got to do a little bit of both to make some change. But like I said, it comes at a cost.
Tracy, did you want to talk about your hair journey, being the only one?
Well, as I think it was Sean who said something about simulating, or melody, simulating. And I just did that naturally, because really that was the time frame that I fell in love with my hair, when I first cut my hair down on the sides and all in the back, and I wore a short pixie cut. And it was even easy on the ship, because I was able to go to the barbershop, stood in line with the guys, and got my hair cut. It was always a professional look, so I stuck with that. But now, look at me now.
We do what we want now. We do.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Oh, and if you're interested to learn more about my experiences as a Black woman and educator in Guangzhou, China, I wrote my first ebook titled Nowhere and Everywhere, Captured Emotions of a Beautifully Broken Love Story. It is on lulu.com. Take a read and see some beautiful photography of mine. Enjoy the rest of the show.
I was just going to say that this voyage that we have been on, we have educated the other races with regards to our hair. And I know even as recently as maybe a couple of months ago, one of my Caucasian friends was reminding everybody, you can't touch her hair without her permission, right? Because we can do so many different things with our hair. It's amazing and astonishing to them. And I know that my friend Angie was like, it really does take you 2 hours to do your hair. Yes, ma'am, because I got to wash it and I got to condition it. And then I got to sit up under the dryer and then I got to straighten it. It's not a wash it, put it in a ponytail and go. Not for me. Mm-mm. So just this journey of educating other cultures about hair has been a long journey, but we have reaped some great rewards from that educational experience that we've given them. Over.
And I would say me, Kat, and Sean, we were up there in DC, and I remember Sean being one of the voices when we were working on the new hair regs. You know, as far as when it came to locks, like we were doing the best we could, and then we had one young lady who was the biggest challenge out there in the fleet, where she ran around with locks, having one braid, pulling it down, showing people she can take it out, and all this nonsense. And I had to tell her, "Boo, listen, eyes black. Okay, you can't pull that with me. Can I choose a lock in your head and you take it out?"
Yeah.
Well, they not they are a form of dreadlocks. They are sister locks. You're making it hard for us to fight. You got to get in regulations in order to fight appropriately, because if not, no one hears you when you're out of regs, because that's the only thing they're pointing at. So that was one of the important things for us as professionals, to be professional in order to even be heard. Because if my hair is out of regs, that's all they looking at. I know that's all I'm looking at. One time, remember that time, Sean, we saw that white admiral sitting up on the stage and she had that red nail polish on and she put her hands around. We like, and she couldn't hear a thing she was saying, because all we saw was this and the red nail polish. I mean, bright red.
Yeah.
It wasn't in regs for her. You understand what I'm saying? Like that.
On top stage, front stage.
On the stage, speaking for the whole Navy, and we were horrified. You know, we were like, what the heck? So you have to look professional in order to even be heard. And that young lady made it really hard for us. And she ultimately ended up getting put out of the Navy. And then they changed the regs. But she wasn't able to enjoy the fruits of that because she was doing it from the wrong side of the fence.
No, because I feel like I was another example of the one that hid my locks. I had like, I think because when we first met, we had that discussion too. And it took a moment of you guys actually sitting me down and saying, hey, look, this is not personal. But if we're in a position where we're sitting at the Pentagon and we can affect change, don't let what we're trying to do get stopped by your pride about what you want to look like, right? I mean, and we see that with even on the civilian sector, when we talk about the Crown Act and everything like that, that they've been trying to push for years, right? But the only way to address it is to take the emotion out of the situation and look at it logically. I've seen a lot of new changes with these new hair regs. It's not about the hair to me anymore. It's about the safety issues associated with these new hair regs. And I am so proud that we are able to express ourselves through our hairs. But I'm like, at the end of the day, you're in the middle of the ocean fighting a fire. If you can't put the safety gear on because your hair is too thick, or it's, it's not fire retardant, because that's the term we like to use in the middle of the ocean, then that's a problem, right? But that's the flip side of it too, right? So when does it need to be checked so that we have the ability to still express ourselves and keep that hair pride, but we understand that what we did was we joined the military, this dictatorship, in support of a democracy.
Well, I want to say thank you all for sitting in the chair and sharing your stories. I truly, truly appreciate you all coming on. This has been so lovely. So lovely.
Well, I just want to say I have the beginning of my career, the middle of my career, the end of my career. Everybody, once we met, we made it to the finish line.
We did.
Together. Like, we're friends to this day. And that's something that Navy life blessed me with. That is the true blessing, that I have my sisters.
Welcome to the chair, where Miss Dream always has a story.
Thank you for listening to an episode of The Chair. I'm going to share with you a dream of mine. I would love to be on Sesame Street. Sesame Street held my hand through childhood. In my dream, I would be in my big afro or rainbow braids sitting on the stoop sharing hair stories. I would like your help, please, by doing all the things like leave a review, share it with someone who would benefit from hearing this episode. And if you know someone who knows someone who knows someone at Sesame Street, share your favorite episode with them, and I'll make you some of my famous chocolatey hot chocolate. I hope you have a beautiful day, or if you are like me, still up in the middle of the night, I hope you take a deep breath and rest. Love you. Talk to you later.
Hello. Please leave a message after the tone.
Dream, hello. I just wanted to tell you you're wonderful. I just got through going through your podcast. Love you, love you, love you, love you. Keep it up. Maybe I need to send it to Oprah and Tyler Perry. Love you, baby. You are great.
Where we share stories in the chicken.